Welcome to In the Spotlight, a conversation with Laura Dern. And now here are your hosts, Wale Ogunleye and Carrie Shuffman.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this very special virtual event, In the Spotlight, a conversation with Laura Dern. My name is Carrie Shuffman, and I'm the head of our Women's Strategic Client segment at UBS. I'll be one of your two hosts tonight, and I'm thrilled to be with you and that so many of you could join us for this discussion. I'm also joined by my co-host, Wale Ogunleye, the head of sports and entertainment at UBS, who, like Laura, understands the spotlight given his long and impressive career in the NFL. Wale?
Carrie, thank you so much. It's great to be with you all, and thank you for everyone for being with us. We have a great program ahead, so let's get started. It's with my immense pleasure I get to introduce our special guest for today, Laura Dern. Laura is an Oscar, Golden Globe, Emmy Award-winning actor, having most recently starred in Marriage Story, Little Women, and the hit HBO series Big Little Lies. She's a prolific producer with her production company, Jaywalker Pictures. Laura is a true Hollywood icon, and we're excited to have her with us. Laura, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be with you both and speak today. Thank you.
Oh, it's great. So before we get deep into the topics that we want to talk about, I would be remiss if we don't talk about 2020 and how this pandemic has affected all of our lives. I'm sure nobody wants to relive this horrible nightmare. How have you been coping with the pandemic?
Well, I'll be asking the same of you both. I think we're all trying to figure it out each day, trying to be as mindful as possible and wear masks and be socially distant. But on an emotional level, as I'm raising two teenagers, I'm walking through it with them, trying to manage mental and emotional health, trying to stay positive and gentle with oneself, even amidst trauma. And I'm really learning from them what that looks like and how to support them, so that I'm also an only child, so that I can hopefully do that for my parents. And I feel like I've really been a pupil in these last months about what it means to try to stay centered on any level for our loved ones when things feel so broken. How about you guys? How are you hanging in there?
Well, we're trying. It's funny you talk about family. I haven't seen my parents. They're older. I haven't seen them since, mid-February. And, we have grandkids that we would love them to see, but we're trying to do the right thing and make sure that they live as long as possible. So it's been trying. And I'm super, super excited to hear that at least we can come together and have this bond where we know that we're going through some tough things. We stick together, we'll get through it, and hopefully the end is near. So I'm excited about that perspective. So let's take a step. We talked about you personally. You are an actor. How is the industry, though, affected with this pandemic?
Like all industries, everything has changed, trying to figure out amidst a pandemic how to keep work afloat. Whether you're a small business owner, a restaurant owner, or, in film or television, it's been very confusing. I have a rather specific point of view in that I was part of the first film back to production amidst COVID, which was a final Jurassic Park film that we just finished this week. And it was incredibly complicated. We were very lucky to have true safety advocates in Universal who created an incredible PPE protocol and workplace environment protocol for the film industry that a lot of people are utilizing now. But I think all of us feel, my kids attempting to have some semblance of going back to school. Like we're all figuring this out in sort of a false narrative, because it's not normal and it's not going to be normalized for a long time. So then what do we make it now? And so for us, I think it was allowing it to be this very new and, radically altered experience of making a movie while trying to make a movie, as opposed to matching something we'd known before. But we were very blessed and everyone was safe, and we finished it. So that's good news.
That's great.
Congratulations on finishing that. That must have been so exciting. And I'm so glad to hear that you were able to go through with the production. And, on the topic of the pandemic, and in particular, thinking about what you mentioned before, taking things day by day and doing our best. Some of the research that we've done at UBS, our Own Your Worth research, has explored how the pandemic has impacted women in particular. And women overwhelmingly tell us that they've taken on more of the household and childcare responsibilities due to the pandemic. So what is your advice to everyone listening in, and particularly women who are juggling so much right now?
On an emotional level, I don't know if it works for anybody else, but we got to start laughing a lot because there's no getting this right. There's no mastering it all. My kids have been incredibly patient while, as a single parent and a worker, I've attempted like really learning to cook. And it's at times been disastrous and at times been successful. So it's not just childcare and running the house while working, but it's also being your kid's part-time teacher and tutor and entertainment because they can't hang out with their friends. It's been, a real journey, but as you spoke to Alec too, there's, the bond in family like we've never had because we are all now in the same experience. So whether it is a parent, a grandparent, or a teenager in the family, everybody's trying to understand each other and have empathy for each other. And extraordinary things are certainly coming out of this time as well. And as I'm trying to also run a household, I've seen the partnership that I have with my children in the home and creating good humor and fun, but also in their empathetic hearts. Like they've both come up with incredibly creative ways to be of service to other people in our community and via Zoom. And I've been really moved by that's come truly from them and their peers. Going to senior centers in the area and, singing outside while everybody opens their windows or leaving flowers at people's doors. And it's an extraordinary time to really put compassion first. And per your question, Carrie, to put compassion for ourselves first in not always getting it seamlessly right.
No, I absolutely agree. And, on the topic of partnership and thinking about families, I want to move to the topic of equality more broadly, and in particular, gender equality. And you, Laura, have been a tremendous advocate for women and for greater representation in Hollywood. At UBS, we're also focused on gender equality through the lens of financial participation. And we've done extensive research on how women approach the major financial decisions in their households. And interestingly, our Own Your Worth research has found that the majority of both women and men believe that only when women participate equally in the major financial decisions that impact them will we achieve true gender equality. And yet our research also showed that about half of women in couples defer those major decisions to their spouse or partner. So what do you think about this topic of women's financial participation, and how do you own your worth and balance all of that?
Well, to speak transparently about it, no one really addressed the topic with me. It was only when I became a parent, and therefore a provider beyond myself to my loved ones, did I scramble in wanting to understand my value and my worth, um, and believe I had the right as an artist to also make money doing my job. There was a narrative that existed in the entertainment industry, and has until very recently, which was, you don't ask questions, you're lucky for the job. And of course, the female in the movie is going to make not half, but sometimes 10 times less than the leading man. That was just the way it was. And that mindset, I think, is what has been a real paradigm shift, certainly in the entertainment industry, in my friends in other industries, tech, publishing, professors around the country, people who always were told this narrative. And obviously this leads us to the question of diversity parity as well. A standard was created, and we were supposed to just live by those rules. And thank God there's been an awakening to that. But it took me till very recently to realize not only could I own my worth, but I was entitled to worth. As a woman, as an artist, and that as a mother, I could be a provider comfortably, was a very new concept. And so, it takes believing in it and owning it in order to be comfortable in every room, asking every question you need answered, to be able to understand, emotionally respect, and then monetize your own value.
It's great. That's. I mean, and if you don't mind me, Carrie, let me step in here. I think when we had talked about when I first got to UBS, Laura, and I saw the research with the Own Your Worth, I felt like they were talking to me. I had played in the NFL for 11 years. I've had these agents and managers and people that were interested in my financial gains almost more than myself. So I saw the research and I felt like this is me, and I have friends in the entertainment business. I also see the same thing, that they're deferring these decisions to a whole ecosystem of people. And I want to get your take on it. You being an A-list actor, do you think that it's you as an actor or me as a professional athlete, when I played, that we should take more responsibility of knowing what's going on with our finances?
100%, don't you? I mean, we didn't know enough to know that it wasn't about just relying on the people that were put in place for us. There was sort of this, okay, you get an agent and you have a business manager, an accountant, and they do the money stuff. And the agent sort of points you in the direction of where you should be working. And I think it takes years for someone to both honor their own value enough to say, well, this is what I want to be doing. And then I have the right to monetize it, and how to keep one's money, where to invest the money. I think back on the times that I said to representatives, I really feel that I should do this job, or certainly financially, I really feel like I should save here, and maybe it's time to buy a little condo and just put a down payment, because at least like I'll own this little piece of earth. It's like, oh, no, you can't do that. No, that's a horrible idea. You shouldn't do that. This is what you should do. This is the job you should do. Trust us. This is, especially with money, and frankly, even in a very sexist way, it was like, we've got this. Don't you worry your pretty little head. We'll figure out where your money goes. We'll figure out, and even the calls about the job. And I don't know if you felt this, even when negotiating was happening. And my God, I have a friend in the NBA listening to those stories, when deals are being negotiated, and certainly as an actor as well, it's sort of like, we're getting you the best you can get. And you sort of, I feel like there was sort of a shame that was carried with asking for more or feeling that you deserve more. So you never even had the opportunity often to negotiate for yourself with your own representatives. Why am I only getting that if this person is getting 5 times that? So learning to ask the questions and self-advocate and to trust yourself first before your representatives. And even with brilliant advisors, that was just something that I was never taught. And it's only now through years of relationships and doing it long enough. And also a really incredible thing that's happened that I hope everyone listening has, in the work that they do, is we're all talking to each other now. Nobody talked before. The only person that ever told us anything was the agent, the rep, the boss telling us what our salary would be. But suddenly, fellow employees, cohorts, collaborators, fellow players are communicating. Well, wait a minute, what did you get? What was that deal? And why did this happen? And I've seen that a lot. Speaking of gender parity, Carrie, going back to that, is with fellow actresses talking about deals and money, which was such a taboo, but it's teaching us about worth and about what's possible. So I think the communication amongst collaborators and coworkers and the demand for respect and workplace environments being supportive, and particularly for mothers in workplace environments, fighting for support in terms of maternity leave and childcare, things that in my industry, my mother, who's an actress, her generation never got on a movie. She could never bring me on a film. She'd have to leave for 12 weeks and I'd be with my grandmother. And so things have changed so much for women in terms of demanding the opportunity to parent and do your work. So hopefully it's all changing, but 100% it's about us advocating for ourselves and never hanging on the laurels of, oh, somebody's here to take care of it for me. I don't have to ask anything, which I started as an 11-year-old. So I quickly stepped into the role as a kid of, oh, the grownups will take care of these questions. And it really took me till I was probably 40 to realize I was entitled to have ownership of my own life and my own monetized life. And then did I start asking questions and looking for partners instead of bosses in my representation.
And I think a lot of what you just mentioned comes down to this topic of money, right? Money really is one of those last taboos. I think so many of us, I don't know about you, Laura, but even among my friends, people are more willing to talk about their dating life or their relationships or their health rather than talking about money. And our research has even shown that people wish it were easier to talk more openly about money. So can you talk a little bit more about your views on money? I know you just spoke about it a little bit, but more specifically, what you think about money, and then also how you approach financial education with your own children.
Happy to talk about anything except money. No, I'm kidding. It's still a taboo. Wait, this isn't about money, right? But it is amazing, isn't it? How incredibly intimate conversations can be with our best of friends and our family. My mother and I, 2 days ago, had a conversation about money, and she was talking about how embarrassed she felt to, quote, bother me with the conversation. It's family, like that's what we're supposed to do, but none of us ever did it My parents and I never did. So no one really ever raised me in discussing money. So it is something I am speaking about with my children. And I do think that breaking through these taboos with coworkers has been an incredible gift. I owe a lot of that, interestingly, because you brought the show up to Big Little Lies, which is that's what happens when you bring, six strong and interested actresses together, is we talk about everything, including money for the first time, and value and parenting and raising kids and allowances. And I mean, I can't believe how many mom friends I have, and I never said, how do you start a child in understanding the value of money and the respect of money? And money was only brought up. No wonder I feel shame about it. It was only brought up as punishment. Like, you would get a $5 allowance, but you didn't clean the dishes, so you're getting no money now. So that was my only money conversation. And with the kids, I'm interested in them being really well versed financially in areas I know nothing about. So I send them to friends who understand everything from, how to support a cause you care about, to the stock market, to savings and what it means. And, my son and I started having conversations about owning a home. What does that mean? And why? Wait, mortgages and property tax? Like, how does anybody ever get to own anything? Student loans, all these conversations that we're all thrown into the minute we go to college, and then we're stuck not knowing, and credit card debts. And so we've started the conversation somewhat early, and really because nobody ever talked to me about any of it. And again, I was raised by actors and nobody was talking to them about it. So it's an exciting time to learn with them about how to protect one's family, and how to also simultaneously be of service in your own family and of service to your community. And that's part of the conversation around money in our home. And I'm excited that they're thinking about money in that way, so that there is a fluidity to all that you can do with money, as opposed to money as a conversation that leads with self, that it can be all things. So hopefully they're learning a lot younger and asking questions comfortably a lot younger than I ever was.
So it's so interesting that you said that. My role here at the firm, I think the great thing about talking with you, Laura, is I see that you're affirming some of my beliefs, right? I have come from the same kind of backgrounds where my mother was an accountant, but we still never talked about money, right? It's a cycle. And for what I'm hearing from you is like we're breaking these cycles. And a part of what I'm doing with the firm is I've gone into colleges and get the freshmen and start talking about budgeting and financing, just little nitpicks, things that they can take with them so that, like you say, as they start becoming adults and adulting things, they'll have some type of a basis for that. So that's good to hear that we're aligned in that. Another good thing about doing some research on you is you're big in the community, and it makes me think on a broader scale. What legacy you're trying to leave for your two sons, right? And how does that look like? I know you talked about them earlier. I know you're chefing it up now more for them, but what is the story or the message that you want them to have about you, not only on the screen, but in the community and in the world?
Well, there's a great misunderstanding about the world of art. It's an incredible luxury to make money and be an artist, and a very rare luxury. And most artists have sacrificed a great deal in order to be in their, creative passion and to do what they feel is of value. Um, and when I was growing up, actors traditionally weren't making lots of money. You don't make money traditionally doing an art film you care about or doing theater, even on Broadway. And so art was also a place of sacrifice. And um, I was very blessed to be raised by a real empathic mom who, whatever she had, she wanted to share it, which was incredible to grow up around that, and with my grandmother as well, my Alabama grandma. And so I feel very blessed for that. But what I also saw was they, as artists and actors, no one was ever guiding them toward retirement, because you don't think of retirement and art, right? You don't think of, you do 40 years at the company and then there is a retirement or a pension. And I know so many next generation actors now who are breaking the cycle because their parents, now in their 80s, many of them like mine, still working actors, have spent their lives working for the next job financially and living in constant worry about the next job. And God knows we don't want that for our kids. We pray for them to have a life, and we hope we can set an example where we are building toward a plan for retirement, so that you are afforded the option to, one, get to do what you love in this life, and two, when you don't want to do it anymore, somebody have a rocking chair ready. My parents are 83 years old and both working actors right now, and working during a pandemic. And I wish they weren't. I'm very nervous about it. But they work to earn money for their livelihood. And so it's taught me a lot about how much I would like to teach my children and demand of this industry a different model, and of our unions a different model, so that people have retirements, and I know you understand it deeply in terms of professional athletes, because it's a very similar trajectory in terms of preparing for a future. And it's teaching me a lot, for sure, on speed dial, how to then teach them how to have ownership of their own lives.
How do you start some of those conversations? We talked about the taboo of money. It can be so hard to approach your parents or your friend or your own children about some of these topics. So what is your best advice to kind of broach these conversations with peers or with loved ones?
I mean, it says a lot when the sit down about the birds and the bees is way easier with your kids than money. I mean, how is that possible? So, and I think it's because we're having first generation conversations, right, about a topic that was never addressed. And I think the reason why there's shame around it is, we were taught, certainly by our grandparents and even parents, right? Like, it's disrespectful because you never want someone to be embarrassed. You never want to show off. You never want to embarrass the family if someone's not making money, if someone is making money. The lack of admittance to holding down other jobs to provide for your family. I mean, what an incredibly extraordinary act of pride it should be, to do anything to take care of your family. But the narrative is very much like, don't ever talk about it because somebody's feelings are going to be hurt. And we all have to throw that away and learn together. I mean, this is the incredible work you guys are doing and the service you're giving EBS, that we all need to have these conversations. And I think the great start of conversations is the responsibility of money, right? Like that you have this amount, and there are ways to save for something special. There are ways to do something that's of service, or to put a smile on someone's face, and to save up to buy something for a loved one at Christmas. Like all these conversations that we started with my kids very young. And as my son says, he learned so quickly, there was a video game, and he was little, and he got a few dollars allowance to start learning about money. And this video game was amazing. You just like press on a thing and it gives you like stars. And if you press again, it keeps giving you more and more. He didn't know it was like tied to a credit card where every time you press the button, your parents were being charged money. And I think it was, my son is just about to turn 19. So this is like, 12 years ago, where there were all these new games and none of us really knew how the internet was working. And they had all our information. And I remember him just heartbroken, weeping that he'd spent, whatever it was like $25 on these stars that he bought through this game. And there was so much shame about it, right? Like the waste and just figuring out ways of teachable moments that are shame-free with your kids about the cost of spending and learning from mistake instead of shaming people with mistake, as we're trying to do in every other aspect of parenting. But I think that's the key. And going all the way back to like in my own career, I think learning now the disparity in payment as a female on films, now that friends who I worked with, male co-stars, said, "Oh yeah, I made this on that movie." I was thinking, wow, that is literally 15 times my salary. And I actually had more days on the movie and a larger role. That's amazing. And so in a way, it's the hard knocks that also teach us to be bold about our value now, right? To stand up for ourselves and say, no, we're not doing this anymore. This is our worth. We're owning it. And you guys need to actually pay us for our value for the work that we do. And so, hopefully then we can teach our kids to know it immediately as they walk in the room, to know they deserve a seat at the table, and they deserve to be paid for that seat at the table, regardless of how they identify or how they're perceived. They know their own worth in this life. And it's a very exciting, very new time. And our kids' generation are just like light years beyond anything we know. It's pretty cool.
That's great. Sound like you're giving me hope for my kids. And speaking about your family, if anyone's ever told you, you sound like you've been an amazing mom. You're really successful at that. So congratulations at that. And your career is successful too. But when we're looking at success for you now, okay, you're an A-list actor. What is success for you? So for me, let me just tell you for me right now, my son's 3. I want to make sure he's potty trained, right? Once I get him done, that's going to be success for me right now. So as you look at your career and look into the future, what does success look like for you?
I think being able to be a provider feels like success as a single mom. That is something I want to feel really comfortable in and hopeful for. Feeling that what I get to create or be part of a group of collaborators creating adds value to the world is success to me. That the storytelling matters, that it's impactful, that it's thought provoking, that it provides empathy and consideration of others. So that is definitely success. And in the immediate, as you said, I mean, I hope mine isn't potty training because my kids are 15 and 18. That would really be a problem. But in this moment, I would say I am hopeful to be a member of my intimate family and my outreach family, my dearest friends, to be successful in helping each other feel grounded and feel patient right now through the next months, which will likely be incredibly difficult, and to have faith that we will get through it, but we'll also be building a sense of unity globally that we've never had through crisis and through shared crisis, which, you know, is a very rare, I must say, opportunity within the horror of this time, is to have everyone going through the same experience. Just as climate changes, you know, that we have an opportunity to come together, to work together as one. And that's an incredible opportunity. So if we can stay focused on that and hopefully have a laugh here and there while everyone is anxious and terrified and you know, filled with all the stress that we know exists, hopefully we can be successful in being each other's partner through this.
That's great stuff.
And on the topic of success, you know, you talked a little bit about being able to tell the stories that you want to tell and bring them to life. And you've played some incredible, strong female characters over the years, including most recently in Big Little Lies and Marriage Story and Little Women. And a lot of the work that we've been doing at UBS is around helping women own their worth and empowering women by encouraging greater financial participation, just as you empower women with the stories that you tell, both in front of the camera and behind the camera. So how do you choose the roles that you play, and what messages are you hoping to convey to everyone watching, and in particular to women?
Well, you know, I feel blessed to have the opportunity to choose as an actor. That's very, very fortunate. And so with it comes the responsibility of the kinds of people you want to portray. And I've always been interested in the mess. You know, I even as a kid really struggled with the, you know, narrow-minded cartoon characters of good and evil. Life doesn't work that way. And I think women particularly, since I have the privilege of playing them, can be complicated and gracious and subtle and outrageously outspoken and filled with rage and super messy and super beautiful and a nightmare and, you know, and all of the above. And if I can reflect to women, you know, powerful women who are still learning how to own their worth, who are still vulnerable and insecure and broken and finding their way. As well as women that are, you know, forgotten and cast aside. That's exciting to me. I mean, I'm excited to reflect for women the conversation around all of us are in this growth space together, and none of us have figured it out. None of us should feel shame about rage or feel shame around being a survivor or feeling some sense of, victimization. So many women for so many years in the depths of brokenness or in something as subtle seemingly as knowing how to monetize one's livelihood, have carried a lot of shame about, the narrative that says, how did you let yourself be victimized like that? That was the story. As opposed to, isn't it extraordinary that you survived that? And that you now take ownership of your life. You've changed your story despite others' misrepresentation, cruelty, abusiveness, whatever it is that a woman goes through in her journey. And I mean, even the shift from victim to survivor in a conversation in recent years has been a massive shift for people everywhere. But as an actor, I feel privileged to speak to the survival of what it is to be human and be a bit kinder to ourselves as we are, all messy and complicated. And isn't that the delicious stuff? Right. There's no getting it perfect. Well, maybe there is, but I am definitely not there. And I love learning every day. And I love being at an age where I can be in a room like you guys are with UBS and say, oh my God, no one ever taught me about that. Wait, how does it work? I don't understand. What is the Tao? Like, no one ever explained any of this to me. Like, what does it even mean? How, or saying to my own kids, I'd love to have the answer. I just don't. I can share my experience. I can tell you what it felt like for me, but this is the complicated stuff of life. Let's talk about it. I wish I had an answer for you, but I spent so many years thinking I was supposed to have the answers. And now I'm in this delicious moment of just getting to be thrilled to have the questions and not being embarrassed about them. So I urge all of the women listening and everyone listening to ask all the questions, because, the answers empower them to own their own value and worth, for sure.
Amazing, great. You actually do have some good answers, so you're doing that well. We've enjoyed our time with you, Laura. One final question I think should be appropriate for us to tie this all together. Knowing our industries, right? We're interwoven. They're all interwoven. UBS, entertainment industries. You dig deeper, you'll find that. Looking from your perspective, how do we change that narrative of things you were talking about, of the gender inequalities, finding more diverse roles in Hollywood for people, and really making sure that things are, and women, and also women of color, are on a level playing field when it comes to receiving roles? What should we do, and talk to the audience, and we being UBS and the industry, what should they do to help?
Start with looking around every room we're in at every moment, always, and demanding a change. Whether you are in a workplace environment that isn't yours, you ask business owners why there isn't more diversity in their store. When you are financially independent and you have the ability to get to invest, ask all the questions, demand of owners and shareholders and bosses and the people hiring you that they are changing the environment, and that whether it's your art, your athletic skill, your seat at the table in a business, they want you. Own your own worth by knowing they want you there, and you bring people with you. If they want you there, then you expect a certain environment, which is an environment that looks like how we live and the way culture looks. And if it's not reflective of that, then, as Reese Witherspoon said to me, Dern, you're prime real estate. And anybody who doesn't know your prime real estate, then they don't deserve your time. But it's a good thing to remember. It's, you know, and with that, you know, we shatter glass ceilings and we demand it to look different. And, you know, when my daughter is asking that of her school administration, you know, at 13, when she entered middle school, like why there wasn't more diversity at her school. And if it didn't change, she didn't want to be at that school. That's cool. That made me very proud. And that was just reflective of her experience. You know, as a biracial student at this school, like what's happening? This isn't reflective of the truth. So you guys have work to do. So may we all do that together and continue to make sure and ensure that the world is reflective of all of us in every environment, and particularly in the boardroom, and particularly in government, so that everyone is honored and represented. That will be something to really look forward to.
Laura, we love and appreciate your candor, and we thank you for being with us today. It was such a great honor to have this conversation, and thank you so much. Really appreciated it.
So amazing to talk to you both. You're incredible. Thank you for your extraordinary work and work with UBS to help lift us all up. So thank you for the time and the conversation, and thanks to everyone listening.
Thank you so much, Laura. And on behalf of UBS, I'd like to thank everyone who joined us for today's discussion, our clients, financial advisors, prospective clients, friends, family, and more, who took the time out of your busy schedules to be a part of this special conversation. We look forward to having you join us for future events from both the women's and the athletes and entertainers strategic client segments. Thank you, be well, and stay safe.